Muy buenas tardes, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the YouTube channel of Instituto Cervantes in Manchester and Leeds. It is a great pleasure to gather here for this special event in our series Talk on Contemporary Catalan Literature, an initiative that seeks to explore the vibrancy and evolution of literature written in Catalan today. The tradition of Catalan literature is both rich and dynamic, with a past illuminated, just to name a few figures such as Mercè Rodoreda, Salvador Espriu, or Josep Pla, and at present shaped by an exciting generation of writers whose works continue to captivate readers all over the world. I was just mentioning that we had the honor that Instituto Cervantes in Leeds has already had many opportunities, but especially that one that in which we present the literature in Catalan, notably in October 2021, with the launch of the book of Barcelona, an anthology from Coma Press and the Northern Short Story Festival. And in this collection includes work by our special guests this evening, Carlota Gurt, welcome, muchas gracias, further underscoring her significance within the contemporary literature in Catalan. Tonight, we will turn our attention to her work in greater depth. This evening's conversation will be led by Xavier Craviotto, welcome, the coordinator of this series, who will engage in a dialogue with Carlota about her literary background, creative process, and body of work. Carlota Gurt is a distinguished translator and writer whose literary trajectory is marked by an unmistakable narrative force. With a background spanning literary translation and interpreting, but also humanities and audiovisual communication, she has cultivated a diverse and multidisciplinary approach to literature. After years working in performing arts and translation, she made her debut in fiction with her short story collection, Cabalgar Toda la Noche, published in 2019, with which she won the prestigious Mercè Rodoreda Prize. Her first novel, Sola, Alone, followed in 2020, and her latest work, Biografía del Fuego, was published in 2023. With her vivid, impetuous prose, Gurt constructs literary landscapes that are both intimate and intense, exploring themes as solitude, transformation, and desire. Her works have been translated into multiple languages, cementing her reputation as a writer of international appeal. And Xavier Craviotto, as a writer, poet, and linguist, will guide us through the dialogue. Having studied Catalan philology and linguistic consultancy at the University of Barcelona, he has dedicated himself not only to literature, but also to the promotion of Catalan language. As a novelist, he made his mark by becoming the youngest recipient of the prestigious Documenta Prize in 2018 for La Mort Lenta, and his latest novel, L'Appel del Món, further cements his status as a compelling storyteller. In addition to fiction, he's an acclaimed poet with collections such as Renils de Cabal Negre, La Gran Náusea, and La Llum Subterránea, which earned him the Audiovisual March Prize, one of the most prestigious awards for poetry in Catalan. In the field of linguistic dissemination, he is co-author of an essay on youth, slang, and colloquial Catalan, and has published stories in collective anthologies and several newspapers. Well, tonight we have this privilege of witnessing and stimulating conversation between those two remarkable authors, offering us an insight into Carlota's literary universe. At the end of the session, there will be some time for questions and answers, which can submit through our chat. It is a great honor, as I said at the beginning, to welcome you to this platform to share the space for discussions and reflection. Thank you for joining us, and without further ado, I'll hand over to Xavier Masgavioto. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. Hello, everyone. Hola tothom. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to inaugurate this series of talks on contemporary Catalan literature organized by Instituto Cervantes in Manchester. Thank you so much for putting this together in order to provide this space dedicated to exploring the voices, the themes, and also the tendencies that shape Catalan literature today. As Pedro mentioned, one of the goals of this series of conversations is to give visibility to Catalan literary works recently translated into English and published in the UK. And I'm pretty sure this is going to foster dialogue, reflection, and a deeper understanding as well of the richness and diversity of the Catalan literary production. Internationalization of literatures such as the Catalan one is crucial to build bridges between all modern societies, especially for those that are usually unheard or unseen, and to give visibility to incredibly valuable works that are often unknown outside Catalonia, overlooked, and sometimes even overshadowed by hegemonic literatures, cultures, and languages. As Catalan writers, we aim to engage in a dialogue on a global stage and engage with readerships all over the world. Some people might still be clinging to the idea that Catalan literary works are niche, but good literature and good stories are always universal, regardless of the language in which they are written or the country they are set in. So, for our first session of this series of conversations, we are delighted to have the Catalan writer Carlota Gurt with us today. Thank you so much, Carlota, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really glad to be here today.
Today we will discuss your novel, Alone or Sola, in Catalan, published in 2021 in Catalonia and published in the UK in 2023 by Europa Editions. But we're also going to delve into your creative process, translation. We're going to talk about the situation of Catalan literature today and many other things that will certainly come up. Pedro gave the standard biography and bibliography of yours, the factual introduction, but when I have these kind of conversations with writers, I like to ask them to introduce themselves because it's a very interesting way of seeing what authors highlight about themselves, the words they choose to introduce themselves to the world. So, Carlota, I'm going to start with probably the most difficult question I'm going to ask you today. How do you describe yourself as a writer?
Well, yeah, who am I? So I don't know, probably. I don't quite agree I'm a writer because I don't feel I am a writer. I feel I kind of do many different things. I translate. In the past, I used to be a production manager in performing arts. So I'm not sure that I am a writer. Maybe at the moment I'm a writer, but I'm not sure that's my core in a way. But yeah, so I think that I like being considered someone who's capable of doing many different things. I like to translate some novels or literature, but in the past I also translated many technical stuff, and it was also fun. I'm now trying to write a monologue for theater, which I will stage myself. So I'm kind of eager to try new things. For me, trying new things, it's important, because if you're always doing what you know, it kind of gets a little bit boring. So I need some challenges. And I started writing because I really thought I was absolutely incapable of writing. So it was like, no, I can't do that. It's impossible. So why not try that if I think I can do that? And yeah, at the end, it resulted quite good, I think.
It worked, yeah, because now we can read your works, and one of these works is your novel, the only novel you've written so far, or that you've published so far. Maybe you're writing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's give some context before discussing the novel about Sola or Alone. The story is basically the story of May, a 42-year-old woman who's just been fired from the publishing house where she used to work. She also feels a drowning apathy towards her marriage and has a very complicated and, I would say, toxic relationship with her mother, who is a very controlling and emasculating figure. May feels completely adrift in life, and in this context, she decides to move to the country house where she spent her childhood with the intention to write her first novel, right? There, she's going to meet the villagers who live nearby, but she's also going to face the frustrations and the elations usually associated with any creative process. And more importantly, she's going to become aware of her own loneliness and the devastating consequences of this loneliness. I read somewhere that you describe your book as, I quote, a chronicle of a self-destruction and a reconstruction, a book about survival. So the first question I have for you, Carlota, is what was the spark, the origin of the story? What triggered the plot? Why did you feel the need to write this novel? Where does it all come from?
Yeah, I always say that when I write, I need to write about topics that really engage me in some way, that touch me in some way. So I cannot write about ambition because even though I am ambitious, it's not a topic that, I don't know, makes me ask questions. So for me, loneliness, it's something that really, I don't know, worries me probably. And especially the the way in which when you feel alone, because, well, what's loneliness? Is it a feeling? It's a reality. So it's a difficult thing to describe. So how your thoughts change when you're alone, because there's no one there to say, hey, stop. No? And then you enter like a labyrinth of yourself when you're alone. And I was interested in that. I read when I was thinking, well, I want to write a novel, because I was writing short stories, and I thought, well, short stories, they are already quite readable, and I thought, well, writing a novel, it must be really difficult. So I needed a story that was compelling for me, and then I thought about making kind of cover version of Solitude, which is a Catalan classic of the 19th century, so 19, and it's a novel, this classic, this Catalan classic. It's a novel about the liberation of a woman. How that's my how I read it. How a woman is is free at the end of the novel. How she gets to her own freedom, and that I thought that was interesting. And I also read, but at that time, this novel by Julian Barnes, the Flaubert, I know how is it called in English, Flaubert's Parrot, maybe?
Parrot, yeah,
yep.
I guess.
And there I read that Flaubert was thinking about writing a novel about how people get crazy. And I've always had this fear of getting crazy, and sometimes I think I'm already crazy. And I thought, well, I could just make a kind of a Frankenstein about those two things, this Catalan classic and this craziness thing. And and that was it. Because I thought, well, if I get lost while writing the novel, since it's my first novel, I don't know how to write. So people say, how do you write a novel? Well, I don't know how to write a novel. I just wrote one. And I thought, if I get lost in the process, I just can go back to the Catalan classic and see what that author did in that. So in the plot or with the characters or anything. So it was like having I don't know, some more, to feel more secure about what I was doing, more confident.
All right. You said lots of things. We're gonna get into detail soon of some of the things you mentioned. When you're reading solo or alone, you feel everything's very intense, increasingly intense, I would say. Was the writing process equally intense? Was it hard to write this novel? Was it pleasant? What was the writing process like?
Well, I think that, writing for me, it's pleasant. of course. Otherwise, I think I wouldn't be able to do it. But at the same time, it's also very frustrating because when you write, you always have the feeling that you cannot be sure that what you are writing is what you want to write. So, for example, if you wanna when you paint and you want to paint an elephant, you can say that no, okay, I painted an elephant and it looks like a lion. Okay, you can see that. But when you write, you're not sure because you are writing something and you cannot be sure if what it's in your head it's the same that's on the paper. So that's confusing for me. And yeah, regarding the intensity of the prose of the text, I think it has to do with my character in a way, not because I am the protagonist, which is something that people just get mixed about, but because I think that every writer writes the way they are. So as I am a kind of intense woman, then my style is intense. So if someone writes in a very plain, transparent, simple prose, which can be really precious, it's probably because their way of looking at life is also something like this. The way they face life, it's like this. So if in my case, I've always been a little bit intense or excessive even.
Okay, and this of course reflects all it mirrors your style, obviously. There's this correspondence you feel.
Yeah, when people talk about the novel alone, and just as you did, and people say, well, it's about a woman who goes to the countryside to write a novel, and I think that's absolutely boring. I mean, I mean, because if you just think about the plot, or for me, the story itself, it's like an excuse to write about something else, to write about how one character sees the world and what's going inside their heads. That's what interests me more than the story itself. Of course, as a novel, you need a story. You cannot write what you could, but you probably shouldn't write a novel if there's no story at all. So the story is just something that you can rely on so that the reader has some questions. I think that when we read, we need that the text poses questions on us, because then we need to answer them. Oh, why is that? Or no? And this is this interest in answering the questions. That's why there should be a story, so that the interest is there to engage the reader. But for me, the most important of the novel, it's not the story itself, but the words, the prose, the images, the kind of universe that it creates around it.
Yeah, sometimes the plot, the story is just the excuse, right? The pretext, like the mold where you kind of put your reflections and your style and the language you want to use. You talked about this earlier, right? The one of the main themes in the novel is loneliness, but I have the feeling it's not simply a novel about solitude, but a novel about solitudes in plural, right? All these different kinds of solitudes a human being can face in life: physical solitude, mental solitude, sexual solitude, family solitude. You mentioned this before. And you depict loneliness as a growing, invading force. I heard you say in an interview that the novel is more about the transformative aspect of these solitudes, right? Their consequences, the aftermath of this loneliness. What's this transformative aspect of loneliness? What does loneliness bring us?
I suppose that it depends on what you have inside. So if you are a very cheerful and positive person, maybe then you find yourself, and I don't know. So it depends on what's there before getting that solitude. I think that it's the same when you are with people, when you are talking with friends or surrounded by people, those interactions transform you also. So you think something, you discuss it with a friend, and your friend says, "Oh, that," and then that makes you reflect on that and change your mind or whatever. So every interaction with the world just changes how you feel things, what you think about everything. And when you're alone, it's just yourself. So you enter in a kind of mental loops, or at least I I sometimes enter mental loops, but and that mental loops can be dangerous for some people, I think, because then they cannot escape themselves. And yeah, the problem with solitude for me is when a person feels trapped with oneself. So if you feel trapped when you're alone, when you're with yourself, it's like I can't escape myself. That's the problem with solitude, with some solitude. So solitude, so it's not something that's bad. It can be good. No, I know you look at Wittgenstein going to that cabin in the woods and making lots of great thoughts. But so it depends on what's inside you, I think.
Yeah, solitude can be useful and fruitful, but it can also be a curse, right? And you can actually see this entrapment you are talking about in the main character, May. I was struck by the complexity of the main character, the way she evolves throughout the novel, the contradictions that define her personality. Her voice is very strong. Sometimes it's full of rage, but also sensitive and witty. But at the same time, you can tell she feels lost in the world. The whole novel, because I don't think we have said that, is narrated in the first person. So there's this central I voice, and the reader, and that's very interesting, can easily get in her mind, her thoughts. And her mind, I feel, is a very special, unique place to the extent that sometimes you wonder whether what you're reading is true or distorted or magnified, right? How did you create this character? Because I feel it must have been very tough to create it.
Not really, because I don't think that I'm very good at creating characters. I just start thinking of someone, so no, kind of a figure which is blur, and then some things start attaching automatically. It's not something that I do. So I'm just walking on the street and I see someone making a gesture. I say, oh, that gesture, I think that May would do that. It's just like looking at the world and just getting those pieces, putting those pieces together that are just there, and you just have to see them and put them together. And so no, I was worried about that, so that the whole psychological process you go through, that it was realistic. That was I was worried about that because I wanted to be a kind of realistic novel, and so I read a little bit about so what can happen to you when you're in that situation. But no, I know it just went out like that. Now, for instance, I'm working in a biography of a man, a Catalan man, a normal Catalan man. So it's a real biography, but because this man wanted me to write his biography, and I'm just approaching him as if he was a character. So it's like, okay, I'm doing some questions, and I'm just regarding him. And when when I go somewhere, I think, oh, what would he think about that? And it's just like inventing someone. But that's something that we all do when we fall in love. We always invent the other person. No, we attach some things that we want or that we desire to other people, and we really think it's reality. So I think that we are all in when we fall in love, or we're with friends too. When we meet someone, you also project what this person is, and you imagine, oh, that person said that because you create a logic, an internal logic for the person you meet. And just creating a character, for me, it's just a little bit the same, just having a logic, a psychological logic in that character.
Okay. So it's a very organic process to you creating characters, I feel.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. It's I'm not sure how I do it.
It's just natural thing, spontaneous intuition, right?
Well, I write. I made some. So how tall is he, or how old, and how does he dress, or blah blah blah. So I make this kind of stuff. But in the end, I think that the more important is the details. When you are writing, and you know, okay, I'm writing the scene when she enters a taxi and blah blah blah, and then you see the character in action, and you feel that that character has to do that or to say that, because it's like a person, it's like someone, so it's not that you have created it. It's someone who is alive in a way.
Yeah. One of the things that you first notice when you open the novel is the structure. I think it's very interesting that we talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the structure because it's made up of generally short chapters. Some of them are a bit longer, but in general they're very short. And the whole book is a countdown.
Yeah.
So the first chapter is entitled 185 Days Before. The second one is entitled 184 Days Before. And this creates suspense, it generates expectations, it builds up the tense atmosphere I was talking about earlier. And it also constitutes an intriguing way of developing the story because the reader is always wondering what all this prelude will lead to, right?
Yeah.
Why did you decide to give your story this architecture, this structure?
Yeah. First of all, I thought I wanted to write a diary, a fictional diary. But then I thought that with diaries I have a problem because when I read diaries or I know or letters or something like that, I always forget about the dates. So there's 23rd August, and then when you get to the next chapter or entry or whatever, I just forgot the other date, and that's a problem because it's important how many days there are between one entry and the other. So I thought, oh, how could I get over it? And I said, okay, instead of writing the date, I would just say how many days, because what's important is how many days are there between one entry and the other. And then I thought that it would be good to be a countdown, because in the end, a novel, or at least this novel, is a long explanation on how one person gets to that end. So it's like a prequel, all the novel of for getting there. And yeah, and also it's obviously when as a reader, when you read the first title, no, it's this 185 days before, you already have a question in your mind. Before what? So you only need one title, first sentence, to get the reader to have a question. And the question is what gets you engaged with the text, and because you want to know the answer. And I think that it's important to keep this expectation and the interest in the text. And I think it really works very well. And these short chapters, I don't really like long chapters in general in the books, because I feel that when you sit to read, you need like a reading unit. Otherwise, you have to just cut the text in the middle, just in the middle of nowhere, and that's annoying. So I of course I read books that have no chapters, or I really adore Thomas Bernhard, who has no full stops. So, but anyway,
José Saramago, for example, no full stops at all.
Yeah, so that's in a way it's kind of annoying. But so I wanted to have that the reading was kind of pleasant in that way. And and I think that nowadays attention is totally destroyed, so we cannot read I used to read 100 pages in a row, and now it's impossible. I know what happened to my brain. It's my age or it's a time.
It's the general attention span of society, I think.
And the phones and everything. So I think that people just don't get that attention. And if you want to be read, I think it's important to know how people read and try to accommodate a little bit to that.
That's interesting. So it's a conscious decision. I'm gonna make the chapter short because you're thinking.
Yeah, I also think that my kind of writing is short. I mean, there are people who really write long. So for the same scene, I could write 1,000 words, and another person for the same scene would use 10,000 words. So my style, I think it's quite concise. I know it's
condensed, concise. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you use lots of metaphors that condense meaning. You show rather than tell, and I think that's very interesting. And something that I found very interesting as well about this novel is the meta-literary aspect, in the sense that the reader is always aware that what they're reading is a piece of fiction, an artifact, because it's constantly and explicitly shown in the novel. So you have this character, May, writing a novel, which in part is the novel that we're reading, but in part it is not. And both novels, the one she's writing and the one you wrote, Carlota, are
Yeah.
inspired, as you said, by the classic modernist novel Solitud by Víctor Català. We're going to discuss the influence of Víctor Català in more detail in a minute. But before, I would like to ask you about this meta-literary exercise. What do you think this meta-literary exercise brings to the story? Why was it important to you to create this game of mirrors?
Yeah, on the one hand, I think that Alone is it's technically a simple novel. So you have not many characters, not many settings. It's written so linearly. So what happens if there are no flashbacks, where kind of couple of, but it's not really that you have two different times or something like that. So it's quite simple. And I thought that it was a good idea to get some depth in a different way. So I made this kind of Russian doll. It's like a matryoshka. So it's me writing a version of this Catalan classic, and my version is a character writing a version of the Catalan classic, and then you have the book, the novel that she's writing, and then you have the Catalan classic. So it's kind of this Russian doll, and I think that it's a reflection on one. Yeah, for instance, it's a kind of homage also to Víctor Català, because I wanted to be obvious that it was a version, even though you don't need to read the original to get the meaning of Alone. And for me, it was also important to put in that novel all what happens to you when you write, because I'm not very self-confident when writing. I also think that, that's not good enough, it should be better. So I'm very hard on myself. And I thought maybe if I write about it, I just get rid of it. Didn't happen.
Yeah, because you use this meta-literary exercise to criticize your own prose. That was very interesting.
Yeah, that was in some parts. So there's a neighbor that talks about what she writes about the character, and the neighbor tells her all the flaws that I have, or that I think I have right now. So it's like introducing the critics of the bad critics of the book inside the book. That was I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it's fun when you're reading it. For those of you who don't know about, because we're talking about Solitud by Víctor Català a lot, and maybe we've got someone in the audience who's not familiar with this novel. Solitud is a milestone of Catalan modernism, and one of the most important works in Catalan literature in general, in the history of Catalan literature. Víctor Català is actually the pseudonym of Caterina Albert. She had to start using a male pen name after submitting one of her works, La Infanticido, in English, The Infanticide, to a literary award in Olot called Els Jocs Florals, the Floral Games. She won the award, and when people and the jury found out that that text, which was full of violence and cruelness, had been written by a woman, there was a huge scandal, right? That's why she started using this pen name, Víctor Català. And Solitud is probably her most well-known novel, and it's also available in English translation, actually, by David H. Rosenthal, and published by Readers International, in case anyone's interested in reading it. It's an excellent piece of work. It's a masterpiece, and it's basically the story of Mila, and now you'll see the similarities with May, a young woman who, after marrying Matthias, is forced to move to a remote mountain in the middle of nowhere, actually. And there she feels lonely, dissatisfied with her marriage, and she undergoes a process of self-discovery and self-awareness. And probably as well, as you said, Carlota, a process of liberation as a woman. I'm not sure if you want to add something else about the influence by Víctor Català in your work, but it's interesting to see the connections between both novels in terms of the language used and the characters. There's even a chapter which is La Festa Major, in your case, Gazzara in Víctor Català's case, which there's a clear correspondence between both chapters.
There are some parts of the structure. So the first chapter of Solitude and the first chapter of Sola is the arrival. So just the novel begins when they are arriving, and the novel begins when my character is arriving. So the first character is the arrival, the final chapter, it's different. So if people who have read Solitude, then reading alone, they thought, oh, I know how it ends. No, you don't know, but it has some kind of parallelisms. And there are some scenes in the middle, like this one of the Festa Major. And there are also, some characters are kind of transposed in other characters, not all of them, but the most important are. And there's this, in Solitude, there's one character who, who explains some folklore stories to the main character. And I thought that was, I like that, because you are telling a story and then you just cut and tell a different story. So a short story, it's a short story within the novel. And I also like that. And so I introduced some kind of folklore fake. So it's not they are real, they are also fake folklore histories, stories inside the novel. And I think it's good because that allows you to have very different tones, very different, language levels also. Now you have something that sounds like folkloric and old, and you have some parts that are written in a very slang, dirty language, and then you have parts that are really very poetic and lyric. And so it's like when you go to a restaurant and you have this menu when you eat everything, and you have to kind of balance all the textures, all the flavors. And I think that novels are the same. You have to use all your all the means that you have. You have many different. So you have to use metaphors, but you have to have places where it's more plain or so. And I think that makes the text richer and more compelling.
Actually, something that really struck me when I was reading your novel and also the short stories is how you combine a poetic, metaphorical prose with a very gritty, rough style. And when I read your books, I can tell you see the world through metaphors. But at the same time, you're never indulgent. You never let this metaphorical language drown or suffocate your story.
Yeah,
That's the impression
I try not to. Yeah, I try not to. But I feel that I'm always on the verge of of failing, that I'm abusing in the use of metaphors, because I really like metaphors. People sometimes ask me, how do you do it to find the metaphor? And I always tell them, I don't find metaphors, they find me. So I'm on my way home, and I don't know, the other day, one day when I just was divorced. So I had just got divorced, and I was alone in the tall in the highway, waiting in a long queue, and then I saw this electrical tower, huge electrical tower there, but there were no cables, so it was useless. And I thought, oh, that's like myself. So I cut off all the cables and have no energy, no electricity, no nothing. I'm just here, huge, but absolutely useless. And then it's like, when I go. It's like interpreting your life psychoanalytically, as if it was a dream sometimes. So I know when I'm at home and my how do you call that? My pipes just get stuck, and I think, oh, there's something stuck inside you. So it's always like this kind of thing. So metaphors kind of assault me everywhere. So that's why I use metaphors. It's not because, oh, I like to write metaphors. It's just my way of looking at the world, probably.
Yeah, seeing the world, and the underground reality under the material reality, I think, right?
It's
And this
sometimes
helps you feel.
this feeling that the world is not real, right?
Yeah.
There are some.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring something up, because sometimes your novel Sola has been labeled as novela rural novel, and has been linked to other works by other Catalan authors that have recently published books, also set in the countryside. I'm thinking about Catalan writers such as Irene Solà, Canto jo la muntanya balla, When I Sing Mountains Dance, or Eva Baltasar, Mammoth, or Núria Bendicho, Deadlands, Terras Mortes. Do you feel comfortable with this label? And do you think there is an actual tendency in Catalan literature today towards rural settings, if that's even a thing?
No, I don't feel comfortable with the label, especially because when you write novels that are set in the city, no one says, "Oh, it's an urban novel, right? No, they only say that when you write in the novel set in the countryside. So it's kind of, there's the big literature, written with capitals, and then we have these small things, the rural literature. So this labeling, I feel it's like a way of transforming you into something minor, and I don't like that. And if I write a novel set in the countryside, it's because I live in the countryside. So, and it's my first novel, for me, I thought, well, it should be set something that I really know very well, because I think that when you write, details are really important. So to give reality to what you're writing. And I thought, well, I know the countryside because I live here. So let's just set it. Because at first I had the opposite idea, which was writing a version of Solitude, which was called Multitude. And it would be a young woman going to the city and feeling, so it was all the same, just how you can feel really alone in the city, even though there's a lot of people, but you can feel alone. I think in solitude and loneliness is specific to the city, because when you are in the countryside, there's no one there. So you go out, and the usual thing is to be alone. In the city, when you go out and you are alone, you see that people are not alone. So they are all talking and laughing with friends, and you are alone. So it's like your solitude is just gets a huge focus, a huge light, a huge spotlight. It's sorry, now I was talking about what?
Labels. We're talking about
labels.
labels.
So labels. But I think that in Catalan literature, especially literature written by women, there has been lately a lot of women going to the woods, and I think that's a metaphor too, because I think that women feel menaced in a way, threatened, and the way to react to this hostility is I don't want to know anything about that anymore, so I'm leaving. And probably there's something about that. So it's not something conscious, but it's it's something that it's in the collective unconscious, probably.
Right. And talking about but it's interesting. I had never thought about it. And talking about labels, genres of course are also labels. You've written short stories, you've written a novel. Is there an actual difference for you between both genres, novel and short story, besides length? The way you work on them, the writing process, how does it vary from one to the other? How do you approach both genres?
For me it's very, very, very different. It's like if I was two different persons when I write short stories or novel. So with short stories, short story is something that you can have in your head. So the whole of it, you can have it in your head and you can look it all the way. So with a novel, you can't do that because it's too big. So when you are looking at the characters, you forget the plot. And so you have to really, for me, I have to write and make some schemes and some planning. With the short stories, I don't need to plan. I just think about something and it just gets it gets done in my head in a way. So it makes a click and then it's there and I just have to write it. With a novel, no, I have to think about it and planning and plan it and think about the characters and think about the structures and think if it would be interesting enough or not. So I'm at the moment I've just finished a novel. Well, I'm not sure if I finished or not, but I'm trying to finish a novel. And it's very tough because with short stories you can fail and it's not a problem. So you write one short story, it's a terrible short story. Well, no problem, you can write a different one. You didn't invest 2 years or 3 years of your life writing that. With a novel, if you fail, it's like a huge failure. So it's like, well, why did I fail? And you cannot forget about. So with a short story that doesn't work, maybe you like it and kind of love it because you wrote it, but you can forget about it. Okay, it's just a short story. No, it's 1 month or whatever. But with a novel, it's difficult because even though someone tells you it's not working, I think it must be very difficult to say, okay, I abandon it. No, I just
to give up. Yeah.
I know. So it's different. And I think it's also it's the same as when you read. So it's different reading short stories than reading a novel. it's the same. When you read a novel, after 50 pages, you say, okay, I like it, or I like it more or less. I'm gonna finish it. No, it's like a pact. I say that novels are like marriage. No, until death do us part. No, until the end do us part. No, but with short stories, it's different, because you start reading a short story. Oh, and the first is very good. Oh, I love it. And then the second one, you absolutely hate it. No, so disappointment is always a page distance, right? And that's difficult, because with novels you get people engaged. With short stories you don't. And when you write, it's kind of the same. No, with every short story needs a different energy. You have to start from scratch. Know what's the character, what's first person or third person, where is it set. With a novel, once you have planned it, you just can write. It's like easier, because you already know what's happening. You know who are the characters, so it's faster. But yeah, I think that with short stories, we have a reading problem. Is that people says, okay, today I'm going to read, no? And they just sit down and they read 6 short stories. And that's a problem, because you cannot read 6 short stories in a row. Because what happens? That all the characters just get mixed up in your head. And the next day you don't remember, oh, that character was in that short story. Oh, no. So I think the short story should be read, 1 or 2 short stories a day. And then you just relax and continue with your novel. So it's like poetry. So it's a distillation. Yeah. It's a distillation, no? So novel, you can read anything. So it's like Burger King, no? But then the more distillated, the more pure is the text, the more time you need to, how do you say, to digerir, to
digest.
Yeah, to digest it. So to process it in a way. No, yeah. So I think that this kind of reading differences are also have a parallelism in writing. So they are writing difference because of that.
Yeah, I've just remembered in your latest collection of short stories, there's a warning at the beginning. Just one short story a day, reader, just one.
Yeah, so I said 2. I think I said 2 finally.
Or 2, one or 2,
because
not more than 2, something like that.
You go to book clubs and people say, I read your book yesterday. I said, no, please, you read 13 short stories in a row. That's a mess. So I don't want to be read like that. Well, anyway, if you don't, better like that than not read. But so I think it's preferable, not just for me, but for you to really enjoy the text.
Yeah.
Because
I followed your instructions.
Yeah, short stories are more dense, because since you don't have this attention, so if novels are marriages, it's like marriage. Shorter stories, it's like a lover. So you never know. So you have to keep the reader more engaged, and they have to be more intense, so not to let the reader go. And
Let's talk now a little bit about translation, because you've been translated into English, Greek, and Italian. You have translated yourself into Spanish, and you are a translator yourself from English and German into Catalan. What's your experience with translation in these 3 different levels, being translated, translating your own works, and translating other authors' works?
Yeah, neurotic. My experience is neurotic. Nothing. When I translate, I'm always very concerned about doing it well enough, since it's not my text. It's always like, oh, am I getting it right? Do I have the tone? Am I altering it? Or so I really get really worried about how I'm doing it. When I translate myself, that's great, because you can change anything you want. So as a translator, when you translate someone else, you can change things. Well, you can adapt or anything. But when I translated myself, I really changed things, because I know there are words that I don't like in Spanish. Maybe in Catalan it sounds good, but not in Spanish. Then I say, well, in Spanish, I will just change the words, because I know what's important, what can be changed or what cannot be changed. And so I think that's the best part of translating oneself. But I feel confident writing in Catalan, but I don't feel confident writing in Spanish, because I was not brought up in Spanish. So of course, I read it, I write it. I have translated many years into Spanish, but just technical and commercial stuff. But it's not like when I think of no, I have a scene with a little girl. I've never been a little girl talking in Spanish. So how can I get the realism there? So I was a little bit worried that the Spanish didn't sound real enough or alive enough. So I asked the editor, said, okay, I'm translating myself, but I need that someone goes after and just checks that everything is fine. And I was very happy with the result. And when you get translated by someone else, especially if it's a language you don't know anything, like Greek, it's like, okay, that's my book.
I just trust the translator.
Yeah, you have to trust.
Yeah.
And but I know I'm not very happy with the translations in general because the Italian guy who translated me really asked me some things, but the other ones was like silent. And when I translate other authors, it would be great to be able to ask them. And when they translated me, I said, okay, you can ask me anything you need. So even if you think it's stupid, because I know when you are translated, there are some things that you are embarrassed to ask because they will think I don't know enough German or English or whatever. But I really, and they never ask anything. And it's kind of unsettling. Oh, why are you not asking anything? And then, then some native readers tell you what they think about the translation. Some of them like it. Some of them, no, it's horrible. The other says, no, it's great. And you don't know because even though you speak Italian or English, you cannot have the real feel of a native speaker. Never. So you just have to trust. Otherwise, you will be Milan Kundera and you will be hated by all the translators in the world. You can choose.
And we're reaching the end of the conversation. Just another quick question, because I would like to discuss a little bit the situation of the Catalan literature today. First of all, can one live off writing in Catalan nowadays? Is it possible to only dedicate yourself to writing in Catalan? What's your view?
It depends on what you understand by writing. If you mean by the royalties you get from the books you sell, I think the answer is no. Well, some can, but I mean, some I would mean 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. Well, but when you write, you probably get some, articles in the newspaper, or you get to, to collaborate with radio, or it's like something that it's in the orbit of the writing, but it's not specifically writing. And in fact, it's some activity that deprives you from the time to write. But anyway, so in that sense, you can live from writing if you do something else. But the problem with the Catalan literature is that we have not enough readers. We need more readers. And the only way we can get more readers is to improve our readers base, which is something that you cannot do from today for tomorrow. So you will need some years to do that. Or you have to export your literature. That's, I think, what we are trying to do. And I think we are quite successful in that because there has been a huge change, thanks to especially to Instituto Ramon Llull in the last 10 years. We are now much more translated, and I think that Catalan literature is booming since in 10 years there's been a boom, and there are really great books written now.
Okay, so I think we can finish with this positive note, right? Now I would like to hand it over to the floor in case someone wants to ask Carlota any questions. You can use the chat in case there are any questions in the audience you'd like to ask Carlota. Don't be shy.
You started, your career has been different paths that have converged to literature. You have worked in theater with La Fura del Bau, something very poetic but very different at the same time. And I suppose, of course, all that has an impact on your writing. But you mentioned that it's easier to make short stories rather than novels because of the the structure, you have to think, you have to elaborate. But what we have traditionally heard as well is that so intense, such a short stories, to make them sometimes is even more but difficult than the novels. Is that related to your personality, your intensity that you mentioned also at the beginning?
Yeah, I think it's not that short stories are easier to write. They are, for me, easier to write. But I know some writers that are really incapable of. So they write great novels, but when they face writing a 10 pages short story, it's like they don't know how to do that, because it's only 10 pages, and they really cannot distillate what's important and what's not, because they are used to just telling everything they want. So I think it's a matter of personality, of the way you are. I really feel very comfortable with short stories. The problem is also that people don't like short stories. So editors don't like short stories. Short stories usually sell worse, even though they sell worse until, I know, my first book just sold the same as the novel. So it sells worse until it sells good. But so it's difficult to live on short stories too.
I
Carlota,
personally love short stories. And also, every writer first is somebody who is passionate with reading. What could you mention some of the influence, not only the influence, yet the passion for literature? How is it started? But we all have some books that had really get to us as marked for, we could say, for the whole life. Would you mention maybe something that has such an impact on you as a person and also as a writer?
Yeah, I think that one book that really had a huge influence on me, even though I didn't know that, I didn't realize that at the moment. So at the moment I read it like 5 times, and then I forgot about it. But I reread it recently, and when I reread it, I thought, oh, there are things that I do or that I try to do that are imitating that, or that I try a part of that. So, and this book is the Milan Kundera's The Unbearable, I don't know how it's called in English. La insoportable levedad del ser, unbearable lightness of the being. I know, something like that must be. Yeah, and it was an author that I was really following like crazy for many years, and then I just forgot it. But I really liked it. And afterwards, Thomas Bernhard is an author that I really like because he makes me laugh. I think that there are two kind of readers: the people that read Thomas Bernhard and don't laugh and don't understand why you laugh, and then the others. And it's a way of telling people, oh, you are that kind or the other. Yeah, there's something very dark and very witty too in Thomas Bernhard that I really like. But you cannot write like Thomas Bernhard because it would be like an imitation, and that wouldn't be good. But I really like that.
Thank you. I mean, as Xavier mentioned, if you are very welcome to ask in the chat, or just open your microphone if you want as well. If there are no more questions, again, Carlota and Xavier, has been a great talk. I am sure that will bring some of our audience to read the fantastic short stories. That's also the novel of Carlota Gurt. And let me also to announce you that we will have Professor Jordi Larios with us in this series on the 16th of September. And in that occasion, that will be about the poetry of Jordi Larios. So thank you very much again to all of you for being with us. It's been a real pleasure. And we will have this talk in our YouTube channel for the wider audience and for the future. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.